Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be checking out the new Protector Rimuru for the Tales of Collab. Now, I believe his outfit is based on the character named Yuri Lowell, I think, from I don't remember which Tales game it's from, but he is dressed up in the main character's kind of outfit, which makes sense because Rimuru is also a main character himself. Now, his kit is a bit wonky, so he's giving World of Fantasy characters the extra damage against Earth because Shion is a fire nuker. You give magic characters 25% attack and defense. He's a stacking protector, so every turn you get an extra 50 skill point cap added. So 152, 253, etc., etc. And then his actual protection skill, double stacks, alt damage for everybody, and then magic attack damage. So this is the multiplicative magic buff that, Blanc has, or like the physical version, but the magic side. So he can lead anybody on an orange team because you can stack alt damage, but he will really, really lead magic units, which makes sense. And then he's got the same gimmick that Spirit Master Jean has, where she makes any alt orb give the same gauge increase as a different color. So Jean did blues because she was on a blue stacking team. Rimuru is doing oranges because he's an orange stacking team. And so you'll get all the buffs that the orange orbs have when you're also sending an alt, which is cool because it just means you can send all six, not interrupt your cycle. And then he also gives oranges a 500% skill point increase, which means that your alt orb, when you have this active, will also give you 500% skill points. So it does work. The problem with Rimuru is that he doesn't orb change at all. Like, he doesn't do it. Whereas Himmel, when he came out for Frieren, he's got the stack, but he changes orbs. So he didn't need that much going on. Rimuru needs people to orb change for him. So let's go ahead and test him out. Okay, we're going to start off with this version of the Tales of Collab. Was it World of Fantasy? Right? Yeah, World of Fantasy team. So Rimuru, Alphen, and Shion. We've got Hinata, we've got Violet, and Blanc. Blanc going to be very, very important. Violet also can be really, really important and impactful for this team's damage output as well. And most importantly, Orb Changer. Future Hand of Orbs. Alphen is an Orb Changer and the alt swapper for both him, Shion, and Violet, technically, since he does fire character orbs. So, with that amount of orb changing, we should be good, and especially once we can use Hinata, every turn, then oranges will no longer be a problem. But we have to get to that point first. So, we could do a couple of things. First off, we could change our support so we have 36 skill points, and then we could just use the rainbow skill right here and get 4 rainbows and 2 oranges. That's certainly something you could do. But for this, we are simply going to use Alphen and use his orb change, his personal change. So changes his own orbs to oranges for 3 of them, and then the 2 fire alts get changed. So let's change those, and now let's bring Shion in. And then we'll go ahead and just send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then with the traits that we have, we'll get a Rimuru stack this next turn. So, we're going to have an alt for Shion this turn. And it's we could start storing it now if you really, really wanted to. That is an awful hand. That is an awful hand. So, what can we do about that? Well, we can do the future hand right there. Boom. So now any orb that comes in will be orange. We can bring Blanc in for Hinata. Yeah. And then we will just simply use the orange buff, and that should give us enough points to rainbow, and then we'll get a full hand technically. And then we can bring Alphen in for Violet. Yeah, there we go. And then Rimuru, let's watch his animation. Turn that on to make sure it actually activates. But you'll see, after the animation is over, that Shion's alt orb will also have this little orange dot on it. and that is to show that you are benefiting from any orange buff that is active, which will include the 500% skill point increase that oranges get from Rimuru. It includes a 70% gauge increase from Blanc's skill. So magic damage, alt damage, and then there's the little orange orb. So if we click on it, increases damage by 30%. Okay, cool. That's the alt. And then gauge increase active for 2 turns, and then we get the 70% from Blanc. We get the 10% from protection gauge, just the skill itself. We get 500 from Rimuru, and then we get the 40% protection gauge from the charm. And so it means that we can send all 6 without truly interrupting our skill point gain. Because if we were to do this, I mean, look how much gauge we're losing on protection right here if we just didn't send that. Or if we were to send it and it didn't have that, we would get like, our bar would move to like here or something, like the corner. But we can, so we're going to do it. Get max skill points, get a lot of protection gauge, and that is how that gimmick is going to work. And again, it's the same kind of thing that we saw with the Spirit Master Jean, because she was also on a stacking team. She's the one that introduced it, but she was doing it for blue orbs. So when you sent an alt, it acted like a blue orb, so the blue gauge increases and the blue skill point increases. Your alts would give you that, so you wouldn't feel that bad about sending Raphael alts or Jean and Lumi alts. And this is the same exact concept, just for a different color. And it does help. Like, this is a very, very important skill moving forward, especially for stacking teams, because previously you just sent the support alts and you just had to deal with not getting as many points or protection gauge as what you're normally used to. So here, though, we've used the future hand of oranges. So now Rimuru not having orange orbs and not having converters is not that big of a deal, but you have to go into turn 3. So your first 2 turns, you're really at the mercy. And Hinata, going to be a very, very important character. If you don't have Hinata, the New Year's Blessing Milim also has the same future hand of orange skill. You could use her instead. She won't be as effective, but she can certainly work, and that's probably the most important thing. But let's go ahead and bring Violet in now, and we can start putting some control stacks on, and then we'll use Alphen to swap these 2 fire alts away, and then we get the full hand of oranges that are still buffed by Blanc. Now we're going to get the full 500% skill points, and now we don't have to worry about the alts, and we can get the EX for Xion, and we can turn this off now because we've already seen it. And this is how we're meant to run this team. So I would assume that one of the 2 incoming meta units, whether Xion or and the third banner, whether it be Velvet or Hinata or someone, they will have some other way to generate oranges. Probably we're going to get a brand new future hand of orange unit to replace this Hinata or Milim. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. So more control stacks, more alt swapping. Let's do the future hand of oranges again. Boom, and that leaves us 38 skill points. The Blanc buff has run out, but let's go ahead and reapply it, and we've guaranteed that's going to be an orange orb anyways. So boom. Also, in case you didn't notice, Alphen's skill is only 30 points, which would mean that it was correct on the JP livestream for his title card, but not for their gameplay example. Because when they actually went into beatdown battle, that skill cost 90 points on turn 1. No longer does it do that. So, another character that could really, really help out this team, if you have them, is going to be the Frieren Raphael. Because the orange orb steel that turns into oranges, the weakness resistance down, and the attack buff, like that, these are going to be very impactful things to another orange stacking team. And unfortunately, people are going to yell at me because it'd be like, well, you told us not to summon for it. It's like, yeah, I sure did. But also, I didn't really expect them to drop 3 orange metas in like 6 months. Because traditionally, we got one every like 9 months or something. Like, we have never had this many orange teams in such a short amount of time. So, my bad. I apologize. I lacked the foresight for them to just completely flip the script on us. But this is the stacking team. And every time we've used Rimuru, we're getting 10% extra magic attack damage, which means that all of our orbs are going to do more and more as time goes on. And then our ults are being buffed by 30%, which is, you know, it adds up. It will definitely add up, especially if we are constantly sending 6 orbs. If we are constantly getting the extra control stacks for the weakness strike from Violet. So Violet, once again, earning her top dog spot on the tier list. Her newly claimed top dog spot on at least my tier list. She was probably up there already for many, many, many other people. But it's neither here nor there. Control. Boom. This is turn 6. I don't even want to know the amount of weakness strike that Shion's going to have once this is over. We do have to use Blanc one more time now, right? Or is it still 20%, 500%, 40% protection? Okay, yeah, we do need to do that. So we're no longer going to get any points back for it, but it's also not really that important because I just need the gauge increase for turn 6 and turn 7, and then they're all going to die. And just simple as that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So Rimuru, if you give him orb changers and a magic team, specifically, he will probably help you do a lot of damage. More so than what Himmel will do, because Himmel is simply stacking the element buff, which at very high numbers is very helpful, but 20% here, 20% there, 20% there, it's not that much. It's not super duper incredible. So let's do one more stack of control. Yeah, and then we'll nuke. We don't really have to worry about the future Hand of Orange skill in this turn because we're going to nuke next turn and they're going to die. So I don't need a full Hand of Oranges next turn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Max points, another stack of Rimuru. We're looking good. This is a very long clip, but this is a stacking team, and I want to show off what he can do with all of his 8 turns to stack, and then we'll put him somewhere else. Can he work as a burst protector? I mean, maybe. Well, we can try it, certainly. But let's go ahead and full buff here. So let's do the... we don't need the control because we've already got it active, so that's not really important. So let's do the big time Blanc buff, which is more magic attack damage on top of what we've been stacking with Rimuru. And then Hinata unskill fuse is just giving 50% element and then her own weakness strike. If she was skill fuse, we would get extra weakness strike for the team, but it's not really a thing here. And then the crit, and then Alphen's own 200% damage, alt damage buff, which will stack on top of Rimuru as well. So we still have 200 points left over. Like, that's a lot. We're going to get 2 more characters that's going to cut into that very, very easily. But Xion herself has 210% alt damage, and that's purely from stacking with Rimuru. And then Alphen, because he's got his own buff, he's got 210 plus another 200. So he's got 410% alt damage, because the stacks from Rimuru are forever. His personal buff is a one-turn thing. They work together. And then Xion herself has 810% weakness strike, 7 stacks of Rimuru, because he's doing 10% per stack, so 70% magic attack damage, on top of the 100 that Blanc is giving us, on top of the 50% fire attack element buff that Hinata is giving us, on top of the crit and 110% crit damage, on top of the debuffs over here, which is really only going to be the defense down from her trait, which doesn't matter a lot, and then the the alt resistance down from the control stacks of 52%. So Xion is going to probably hit like a truck, but still less than what we could see. Actually, let's send Alphen first, just for fun. Let's send Orbs first, then send Alphen, just to see what it does. So Xion's doing 1.2 million a normal orb, 1.8 there for the 150%. Alphen, with his non-EX alt, but very high alt multiplier, and he's also been receiving pretty much the same amount of weakness strike stacks. He's got the same buffs on, just not an EX alt, and he does 31 million on a single target as a free-to-play character. Have you ever seen a free-to-play character do 31 million damage? I sure haven't. And if I haven't, probably means you haven't either. Okay, Xion, impress me. Consuming Wildfire. And you do 38 million. So, yeah, that's pretty good. That's decently good for the amount of damage buffs that we brought, and a literal butt ton of weakness strikes from the control and the stacks of Rimuru. So yeah, as a stacking protector, as long as you can guarantee yourself orange orbs, whether by Hinata or Milim or like rainbow orbs or something, you can cycle Rimuru reasonably well. Okay, as the other relevant stacking orange team, the Frieren team, and also magic focused, can Rimuru, reasonably lead this team as well? We have a way to get orange orbs technically, and that is through Raphael, or at least 6 orbs in general, maybe. It's going to be a bit rough since he's literally our only orb changer, but you could very easily swap this Violet out for like the free-to-play Cleash, or maybe even the Wielder of Magic Ranga. In fact, let's do that, since everyone on this team is Wielder of Magic minus Blanc. And that gives us a little bit extra security in our orb changing. And we're not going to go 8 turns here. We're going to go very, very quickly to see what we can get out of like 4 or 5 turns here of just stacks. So we've got 3 Blanc orbs. Yeah, okay, sure, that'll work. We can steal those. So Raphael in, we'll yoink those, and then we'll bring Fern in as our nuking character. And we're just going to be type neutral here. So it's maybe a bit more realistic of a setting. 53 points, a stack of Rimuru. Fine, that works out. We have Blanc to give us another 40 next turn if we need it. That's not an EX ult for her, but it's fairly close. But what does our hand look like? Okay, thankfully we got this. So we can bring Raphael in for Fern, who's going to bring in another one, and we can yoink those. So give me that. And then we can bring in Blanc and use your orange buff, which is only going to hit 3, but it's going to give us a little bit extra skill points next turn, and we don't need to see that again. Why is that? I thought that was off. Nope, it's still on. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 200 skill points. Let's see. Fern does not have her EX ult, so we don't need to worry about her second skill as much. Can we... How much health does Midray have? Like 800k or something like that? He's got about 800k right now. Let's do that. Let's do just the ult damage and synergy, and then we'll bring in Fern for Blanc, and then we'll just use her synergy power and her magic buff. And we'll see if 3 turns, what we can do here. Is it reasonable? Is it viable? I think I'd rather still use Himmel because the orb changing gets a bit more guaranteed than this. But Fern will have 60% ult damage. She'll have 20% magic attack damage from the 2 stacks right there. She's got her ult, she's got magic attack, she's got synergy power and synergy rate. So let's send 1, 2, 3, 4 and see what happens here. And there we go. I mean, 800,000 single target, like with minimal buffs right there. It works. He can lead teams. You do need to feed him orange orbs, though, even in a type neutral setting. In fact, he probably works better in a type neutral setting because the magic damage and the ult damage is very generic. He needs stuff built around him. That's the most important thing. Alright, the final thing we're going to do is, he buffs oranges, which rainbows count as orange orbs. So, can we go into Chamber of Memories for the Visions of Coleus team, which is traditionally a blue stacking team, and make him buff them enough to where we can take out this rain with 4.3 million HP within like 4 or 5 turns, because we're going to have so many skill points coming in, and a lot of rainbow orbs from Coleus Rimuru and the Exalted Champion Rimuru. Is it doable? I think so. Is it maybe the best course of action for him? Well, that's something you have to decide. But, I mean, we are trying to make him work as best as possible. But I don't think he is as generically useful overall as Himmel would be. Himmel will definitely not give you as much damage. And I think I might do a damage test video between the two just to showcase that. But I think Himmel is easier to run than this Rimuru Protector. So starting hand, because this is built for Visions of Coleus, we will use the Violet Orb change, and then hopefully next turn we can do something fun. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we'll get 53 points. We've got a Rimuru there, and if we can get some Rainbow Orbs next turn, we'll be looking good. Or maybe we just keep on stockpiling, because Blue Orbs not going to truly be buffed here now. What are we looking like? So, how many points? We need 55 points. Do we get 55 off of that? Okay, yeah. Let's do that. let's do that. Let's bring you in for Violet, right? No. Let's leave Violet in. So let's just send this one green Jean Orb. That'll give us exactly 55 points. And then next turn, we could simply swap Violet for Rimuru, use his Selfish Orb change, then use the Rainbow Orb change, get a full hand of rainbows, use Rimuru, and then they'll all be buffed. So this will work out, I think, as well as I could hope for. So self-convert, change all the blues to Rainbow Orbs, boom, boom. Okay. We'll bring you in now. I kind of wish it was all like Blanc Orbs, but no, whatever. And then Rimuru will give everyone on this team 10% magic damage buff, because everyone's magic. Give us stacking alt damage, which we already have a lot of alt buff coming from Jean herself, but maxed out points, maxed out protection gauge. The rainbows are doing their job, alongside getting that extra 500% skill point increase, which normally rainbows would not give you. Like, a full hand of rainbows without any buffs would still give you, like, 73 skill points or something. But because of the buff from Rimuru, he's giving us quite a bit more. So, buff again. This is turn 4, so we have one more turn to go. Because I have Coleus Rimuru skill fuse, we can use this rainbow skill again, which I think we are going to do here. So let's go ahead and rainbow alt swap with Rimuru. That way we get more rainbows. And then we'll bring Violet in for... actually... no, we'll bring you in for this Rimuru. There we go. And then we'll bring Violet in for Blanc. That's what we're going to do. So we will self-convert again, use the Violet convert, use the Rainbow convert. That'll give us a full hand of rainbows again. So boom, boom, blues to rainbows, boom. Maximum skill points again. EX alt for Jean, and then on turn 5 we will simply nuke. And excuse me while I sneeze. Oh man, don't you hate it when you, like, the sneeze is there, but then it just never shows up, and you're like, oh, I hate that feeling so much. Okay, so let's get Coleus Rimuru out of here, since you're not really super necessary for damage at least, and then we will do the magic buff. Oh, the thing is that we're not gonna have synergy now because we took out Lumi. So a lot of these buffs aren't going to matter. Oh well, I mean, we're still going to be fairly powerful here. And type advantage at minimum. We're not getting the extra damage buff from the Protector, though. So, I mean, we'll see if all of these stacks of Rimuru in 5 turns and these Rainbow Orbs is enough to overcome that or not. I feel like it's not, but looking at it, we have 120% permanent, plus another 100, plus another 70. So we've got 220, 290% alt damage, essentially. And then Jean herself has 40% magic attack damage, and then a barrier stone apparently, and then magic attack trait here, and a trait here, and a trait here, and magic attack here, and weakness strike there, and synergy power, which doesn't matter unless we hit that naturally. But 1, 2, 3. Can Jean do 4 million damage with these buffs? I kind of hope so. Yeah, we'll watch it. I kind of hope so, but I also kind of doubt it, because we're not being led by a dedicated protector anymore. If she does, I'll be actually kind of surprised. Yeah, that's about kind of what I expected. Okay. Yeah, I did not think we were going to do 4 million damage with that. But you can, in some circumstances, have Rimuru lead you. But I think he needs too much to do so. Like, he needs a very particular team built around him that if you do not have those options, I just think you're better off finding someone else to use. So, if I were to choose between Himmel and Rimuru as what I would prefer to use for any team given, I would probably actually rather use Himmel. The damage output will not be as high, but the RNG for orbs and team being specifically built around that is much easier to do with Himmel, because he's got built-in orb changing. Rimuru does not. He's raw damage output. So if you want to do big orange damage numbers and you don't have like Shuna or something, or well, he's like the stacking magic contemporary, then yeah, Rimuru would work. But honestly, if you have Himmel, I would just use Himmel. So let me know what you guys think of this new Rimuru. Do you think I am selling him a bit short? Are you more impressed with him than I am? Let me know in the comments. But that's it from me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.